Hello to you all, and good afternoon, early evening here in Arizona, USA. We are going to start our session of 1 hour weekly with Kabbalah, and we will just summarize in short the last point of last week, which is the words of the Baal Tanya, the one who actually generated and started initiated the Chabad movement. And I'm not Chabad, I accentuate I'm not, but nevertheless, what he wrote, we are students of everyone, is incredible concept in Kabbalah that we all have two souls, not one. Because as the writing says, when the Shamot Ani Asiti, that is in Ishayahu, in Isaiah, right? Which means that I have created actually two souls. What are these two souls? And this is incredible knowledge. One is the fact that I have actually created one soul, which is the Yetzer HaTov, which is your right inclination, which is the way that you want to actually be in this world in a positive way, which we're going to discuss now. And the other one is called the Sitra Achra, which means this is really that negative opposite than the Kedusha, opposite that the holiness, the sanctity that God has created. And so we are living in this world with two souls. You will ask yourself to start with, why did God create two souls? And this is actually the major part of creation, because our initial soul, which is completely pure, Elokai neshama shnatata bi tohara, the soul that you've given inside me is completely pure, is called yesh miyesh. It's completely given by God. It was created by God. It's created, otherwise we come to polytheism. It's created by God, but it's infinite, and it was breathed into us by God himself. But it actually existed even before the physical creation. But in this creation, the purpose and the reason, the Tikun that we are in this world, is for the other soul, which is called the Yetzer Hara, or the Sitra Achra, the other side, which that versus this God has created. And the reason is that if I want to grow in any kind of profession, if I want to grow in any kind of martial art or tennis or any kind of sports, I need an opponent, not an enemy. I need an opponent, because I can play all my life facing a wall, tennis, and say, I'm the world champion. But I'm nobody, because I've never actually had any real trial, test, tribulation, facing a real opponent. Now, that Yetzer Hara, that Sitra Achra, is not only an opponent, he is actually an enemy, because his entire creation, he's a holy angel given into our body by God. And every time I think, every time I have an emotion, every time I act, I have to consider very carefully and cautiously my actions. Is it coming from pure intentions, or is it coming out of my interests? Is it coming out of my will to give, or is it coming out of my will to take? And that's one of the major criteria. If I'm doing it out of personal interests, out of monetary interests, out of my wish to take from somebody else, possess out of jealousy, vengeance, then I should definitely know that this is coming from the other side, from the Sitra Achra, from the Yetzer Hara, and therefore this action should be withdrawn completely. And if we understand that, we should go through the entire 10 commandments, the Aseret HaDibros, understand these are vessels, these are clothed up of the 10 Sfirot, which we're going to discuss later. And each one of them actually says, what shouldn't you do, because this is a force of taking. Killing, take life. Stealing, take somebody's possession. Coveting, take somebody's possessions or wife or whatever it is. So stealing, or rather lying, is taking away somebody's honesty or trust without their knowing. It's stealing the mind, as Rabbi Nachman says. So all of these 10 commandments actually a clothing of the fact that, am I a taker, and I'm using the Sitra Achra, and actually it's dressed inside me, and I'm a vessel, I'm a conduit, I'm a pipeline for the Sitra Achra, and I'm abusing, or I'm losing the entire purpose of my creation. What is the purpose of my creation? The Tikun. That Yetzer Hara, as I said, is an angel. We are not allowed, according to Kabbalah, to curse it, because this is his mission from God. He prays every day to God and says, please, God, Don't let me fall. Don't let me make this person fall with my tempting them, with my forcing them, eating more addictions in all kind of colors of the rainbow that everyone knows about. But if he is not successful, then he becomes your subjugated slave. That is the purpose. If he is successful, gossiping, lying, stealing, coveting, adultery, idolatry, whatever it is, you name it, then he hates you, he judges you, and he turns around to be that adversary, which brings your judgment to Hashem. So just in short, what does it actually do? Where is it? So they actually, even the pshat, the simple understanding in the Torah says that this sitra achra clothes itself inside our blood. We have a statement in Hebrew which says, Hadam ala rosh. The blood went all the way to his head, shot up to his head. He's so angry, so mad. Why? Because I'm the center of the world. I need to have my own ego. And you are disturbing me. You're cutting me in the road. You're cutting me in my lecture. You're cutting my statement. You are conflicting with my opinion. And therefore, it clothes itself up in the blood. This is, by the way, the secret, or why not to eat kosher. Because when I eat something not kosher, which usually is in the animal world, because the plant world, everything is kosher except for drugs, not kosher, right? But whenever I take something which is not kosher, especially animals, let's say a pig, whatever it is, shrimps, whatever it is, cod fish, then its blood, whatever blood it has inside, in that consumption has a certain entity, a certain value, a praying animal, a value which is not conducive, which is not, doesn't line up with my pure soul, and therefore it brings me all the way down through the blood. Whenever I use a terrible kind of attributes, I get angry, vengeful, jealous, then I'm abusing that vessel. I'm tempting, I'm becoming too naive into that terrible pit hole of becoming again a vessel, a conduit for that sitra achra to use me to draw me down. What kind of, just to summarize this, what can I expect from it? How do I realize, it said, realize you're standing in front of God. Yeah, but at the same time, know who's your enemy. Who is my enemy? So we discussed the last 2 weeks. We started to discuss the 4 elements. I'm going to reveal to you is your enemy. 1, right? And it is in any one of the 4 elements. In the element of fire, we have inside us anger, we have inside us being arrogant, pride. This is my money. This is my intelligence. I'm smarter than everyone in the world. I'm richer than anyone in the world. I'm the most beautiful one in the world. Who's more beautiful than me? Cinderella's mom, who had this beautiful story that we all read as kids. That comes from the element of fire. When it comes to the element of water, any kind of temptation, desire, lusts, foods, drugs, adultery, right? That all is drawing our heart towards those temptations which come from that element of water. And each one should know where he's tempted and where he's this tikkun. The tikkun is to devote ourselves with mesirus nefesh, real devotion, to go the other way against my nature for at least 2-3 weeks till I make an ownership on this, that I don't go that way anymore. When it comes to elements of air, then we're talking about exaggeration and being so proud of who I am, or gossiping or lying. Anything that's got to do with speech and human interactions, where I hold that I'm better, that I'm smarter than somebody else, and I abuse my power of speech, right? As well as, for example, somebody already gave you a beautiful hour of Kabbalah, but at the same time, this beautiful NBA match, or at the same time, you can speak gossip, or you can write in the chat group something about gossip or something else. Then you're abusing that beautiful time that you were given, because time equals life, instead of using it for something holy to elevate yourself, for something less. And the last but not least, the element of earth is that element where we get drawn to grief, to sadness, to depression, and to being very, very lazy. Now, we might think that I'm not grieving right now and I'm not being very lazy, I'm being very assertive. And at the same time, I'm not very depressed. When a person is depressed or a person's got moods, that's the best way for the Sitra Achra to abuse you and say you are a worthless piece of nothing. And therefore do anything, because this is the furthest, most materialistic element away from God, who is completely spiritual. So the way of the Sitra Achra to get to you is not only tempt you and make you falter with some kind of an avera of transgression. No, the worst part of it is because you've got your own compass and your own conscience. You're going to say, "Oh, I've done such a terrible thing. God has rejected me," and therefore you fall into depression or into moods. And then the Sitra Achra will tell you, "Do whatever you want because anyhow you are a reject." Right? This is the first part that we have over here. And the way that we fell into it is because of Etz Hadat Torah. Once we've eaten from the tree of knowledge, good and evil, we have internalized that seed, that toxic seed that is poisoning our blood and our thoughts and our mind and our knowledge and our awareness. Thus, every time, all the time, and I have to sift and make a selection. Every time I think, every time I eat, every time I speak, every time I feel, every time I do an action, whether it is going to be from the good or from the evil, and fight over it to make sure that it comes from the positive. The more I know, the greater is the conflict and negotiation and the fight. Till here, if you got any reflection, comments, conflicts, stage is yours.
Well, I have something to ask, and that is,
yes,
giving. You know, we always talk about that giving is better than receiving, where giving can be way out of balance too.
Right.
To our own detriment, to our family's detriment, and even to the detriment of those to whom we're giving.
It's true.
So could you talk about that?
Absolutely. So once we will go into the Sfirot, into the holy spheres, then we're going to discuss it more in depth, but in short, in a nutshell, the Holy Zohar says very clearly about your question, elaborates and says as follows. We've got two major dichotomies, two major extreme lines in the Kabbalah. We're going to discuss not just these two, not the middle one. One is the line of compassion, kindness, and we know the great rule that Rabbi Akiva gave to us in life, and it's already written in the Torah, which is, you should be loving, you should be compassionate, you should be kind towards your fellow man, your fellow person, wherever it is, whenever it is. That's the one line, which we discuss. The other line is that line of don't do to your fellow person, your fellow neighbor, what you hate to be done to you. So you're discussing that right line in Kabbalah, which is the line of compassion. Now, the Torah says, for example, if I cross that line and I'm too giving, too compassionate, two things can happen. One is I can be abused by my over-kindliness by other people, and people will abuse my goodness of my heart, taking too much money, too much time, too much of my family, devoting everything to the neighbors, to the municipality, to the politics, and not be around at home. And for example, there's a apparently great woman in Israel, seemingly great, that got married at a young age, and her husband expected from her, according to what he heard about it, she's a very righteous lady. But after 6 months, when meeting him, one of the great rabbis of Bnei Brak asked the father of the chosan of the groom, how is the life with this beautiful, righteous lady? He said, don't ask, my son is living in terror. He said, what do you mean? She devoted him and her, right, towards the entire neighborhood. Nothing is done at home. The home is upside down. It's in chaos. All she does is sends the whole day and says psalms. She's so righteous. This is unbalanced kind of kindness. And therefore, we have to go into the depths and say, kindness start at home, but have also deserved time for yourself, for your family, for what's important. Only then, if you got anything left, make sure that you give outwardly. The same applies, by the way, to teasing. By teasing, I don't mean teeth. I mean giving tenths of your money of the net. Some people go out and give to everyone, but in the household, you've got nothing. First, you give to your children, to those people that are within your family that need, then the people of your town, then other people, other kind of causes around to animals which are dying or needs to be saved. First, you need to give at home. It shouldn't end there, but it's a good beginning. The other side of it is what the Torah says: if a person crosses the line, for example, doing too much kindness, says if a brother sleeps with his sister, the Torah says ki chesedhu. It doesn't say because it's a criminal act, which it is. It says you cross the line, you think this is an act of it's not an act of kindness. And it is interesting that the Quran clearly says that Muhammad, that you should never cross the line and you should never sleep around with your sister who is a virgin. Nevertheless, we do know, and this is a fact, that Muhammad slept with his sister who was a virgin. But being asked, what did he do? So he said, because I'm above the law. Nobody is above the law when it comes to being Jewish, etc. Nobody is above the law when it comes to us. Moses, to the simplest of people, we are all bound by the same laws of keeping that borderline, not giving too much, not to be abused, to summarize, and not crossing the line when it shouldn't be. And we just heard about a certain man in the last few days somewhere around the world that crossed that line with quite a few girls and married ladies. And because he was caught red-handed, he suicided. And that's such a shame that a person should cross the line. And therefore, you should keep yourself in check in that respect. Now, what we want to discuss today, which is a huge topic and subject, is the concept really of the 5 parts of our soul. So we're going to go very slowly. I'm going to give you one by one. We can have a discussion about it till we get it right. Now, usually, even in English, we usually have the term soul, and some have the term like spirit. And we think it's a synonym. It's one and the same, but it isn't. So Kabbalistically, we know that we have 3 very important parts of our soul, 3 very important parts of our soul. And that is as follows. The lowest part we share with the animal world. If I have a bird or a fish or a dog or any kind of animal, right? Or if I have a plant, which I dearly cherish, and many people, they pet the leaves, they water them, they give it love, which they do. The reason being is because we do share with the animal world, especially, that animalistic soul. By an animalistic soul, we mean that animals have intelligence. Some are very intelligent. Elephants are very intelligent. Donkeys are very intelligent, and many other animals. Sometimes we try to catch a bee or a mosquito cleverer than us. They get away, which means they've got a very good intelligence as well as senses and 360 degrees all around kind of vision. I can't beat that. And usually I don't get the mosquito, which I want to get when it bothers me in the night when I want to go to sleep quietly. But they do have an animalistic soul. What does it mean? It means that when an animal dies, so I don't expect that animalistic soul to rise up to the highest level of the higher worlds. There is no heaven for animalistic soul. There is either a place for that. And that's why we can see dogs, for example, or cats, standing in front of a certain corner in the room and barking or meowing or whatever it is that they do, because they are able to connect and see. They don't have the filter that we do, some kind of animalistic soul or somebody who passed away as a person to that world of animalistic soul, which is right around us. They can see people that have passed away. They can feel other animals that pass away. And that's what many people connect to, that animalistic soul. What do we know about this? In Hebrew, we're going to go slowly and thoroughly because this is very important. In Hebrew, that animalistic soul is called nefesh, which comes from the word nefisha, which means this actually relates to the element of earth. Anywhere in our system, which is under our diaphragm, where we have the digestive system, the urinary tract, the production kind of system, right? Fertility system, that all belongs to that element, which is the element of earth. Nefisham is in Hebrew, I'm lazy, I don't have power, I wouldn't like to move, and the tabernacle, or rather the place where that animalistic soul resides in us, the liver. That's Kabbalah. In other words, whenever I'm angry, whenever I'm too very much in grief, whenever somebody touches my ego and I'm excited and triggered, how dare you speak to me like that? That's all connected to our lower organs, especially within that liver. Temptations to drugs, to all kinds of addictions, to my honor, to my ego, to my vengeance, that's related in general. We can go into details. It's not so simple as I'm saying it, but in general terms, it's related Kabbalistically to the liver. In other words, there are certain organs in our body which we cannot live without. If a person without the liver cannot live, a person without the heart cannot live, a person without the mind, without the head, the brain, cannot carry on living. Why is that? Why can I take out the kidney? Why can I take out the spleen? Why can I take out other organs, one lung, right? It's not the same life, but the person can be living. But a liver cannot take out. The reason is because this is the residing place, the location of my animalistic soul. Once I take it out, I've got no place in this world anymore. So it's of vital importance that we came to this world first and foremost to fix that. If you want a tip, and I will give you the tip now, right? So just bear with me. I don't start shouting because we still have a long way to understand everything I want to tell you today. If you look at your pinky, the little finger, that bottom phalange over there, and you see any standing line on the bottom part of your little finger, this actually shows the way that you travel, your journey in this world concerning and considering your nefesh, your animalistic soul, meaning lines which are vertical on the lowest phalange, in your right hand especially, right? Meaning the hand that you write with, show that you are going right, you're going in the right direction, you're able to win over your animalistic soul. Moreover, if you have more vertical lines than horizontal lines, it means, yes, I'm fighting, but I'm successful. But if you see many horizontal lines, more than the straight lines, more than the vertical lines, it means that unfortunately, you are succumbing, you are giving in to that animalistic desires, temptation, lusts, and they are drawing you down. And you should really get hasty, you should get quick with starting to pull yourself together and work with that. Because all of us, it can be the highest of people like Moses, can be the most simplest of people. We all, in any kind of given reincarnation, this is our major test, and that's where we all fall. Money issues, to be very honest, adultery, idolatry, lying, cheating, stealing, rounding the corner when we shouldn't, right? Allowing ourselves to do certain things when nobody sees. As the legendary John Wooden, the coach of the NBA, said the person is being tested when they are on their own, right? And always the pantry is a good place to search when you wake up in the morning. So, doesn't look the same it looked last night. Somebody visited here and it was on 2, it wasn't on 4, right? And many other kind of things that people do when they're on their own, because that's when the evil inclination really gets hold of you, and that's where the fight starts. That's where you shouldn't give up on yourself. So let's start with that. Any reflection, observation with that, with the animalistic soul you'd like to add, please go ahead.
Okay, here I am again, and I'm asking, so this isn't really the topic of your talk, but when we are dealing with our own or someone close to us the overcoming our animalistic tendencies and trying to grow, we have to talk about stuff that could be called Lashon Hara.
Right. Evil gossip, right.
Okay. And so, we hear, oh, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. But, especially when you're uncovering things that have happened to you and you're identifying where you need to heal, you have to talk about it.
Right. So this is a good topic. So, for example, so we know as follows, and I can tell you from the fact that apart from what I'm doing with Tara, I'm also a doctor of holistic counseling, a doctor of psychology. So when people come to therapy, for example, there are almost no rules of Lashon Hara because people come to vent, people come to share their heart and to download and to release whatever they have, all that resentment they have inside them. There is no place of saying, well, this is Lashon Hara. They have to let it out. They have to release all that load which they're carrying for so many decades and years. Of course they do. Or the many, many rules for it, when you're allowed to say and when not. So we shouldn't judge it for ourselves, right? But that's why we have the whole book of the Chofetz Chaim about that. But in general, there are many, many cases when you are allowed to speak Lashon Hara, when it is the right way to do so, when I'm a part in it and I'm involved. But in every single question, that's why there are rabbis around, people that I've been giving shurim about this for the last over 20 years. So I've gone back and forth in this matter. And many times your own interests makes you see things not in an objective way. I'm speaking about myself. I'm entitled right now to speak evil gossip. So the idea is, let's be very cautious, but yes, when necessary, when very necessary, under very special conditions, we not only we can, but we should and we must. Sometimes a person must unburden themselves. And that's absolutely true. Let me just look 1 second. Somebody asked in the chat. So I have one question. Let's say that one is alone and is working on pushing away the thoughts of the evil inclination. And suddenly an intrusive thought comes, and yes, no matter how much the person pushes it away, it won't go easily. What is the best way to eradicate it as quickly as it comes in, right? So this is a very good question. And I will share with you a case many years back when I was lecturing in Israel. A certain young lady called me, I don't know her name, not before and not after, maybe she even called anonymously, and she said, look, this is really the case. I'm having these terrible thoughts which push themselves into me, and the thoughts are so terrible, I can't even, I'm embarrassed to even discuss them. So what is it? Said, I'm cursing in my mind God day and night. I understand it cannot be true. It cannot be. There's no need. I love God. I'm thankful for my life. Why should I curse God? I understand it's my evil inclination. I can't stop it. It's just drilling in my mind day and night. I'm going mad. How do I stop it? So 2 things. First of all, in general, when I tried my best and I realized, like in that movie, Beautiful Mind, that it's not me, it's those thoughts, just let it be. You're not supposed to push it very harshly. The mind is a very gentle organ. You try your best to push it aside. If you cannot, say to God, I've tried my best, take it, this is yours. I don't mean it, it's not me. This is the reason. When a person is sick or when a person is dying, we make a vidui, which in it, confession, which in it we say, God, any kind of thoughts which will overtake me, it's not me, I'm not responsible, it's not my thoughts, I'm very sorry. But we cannot control our emotions, we can control our actions. Do not let these thoughts manifest as something that you're going to act upon, meaning a person now wants to steal, a person now wants to kill, a person now wants to lie. So even though the thought is there, but I know better, because that's why I have a book of rules. Right? This is why I'm a pilot on autopilot in the middle of the night, and my book is the Torah, the Bible, and saying, no, I know it's wrong. So even though it pushes you and it forces you, and it sort of say it takes away your mind, don't bring it into actions. So what is the trick about it? What is the tip I can give you? 1, King David told us, lie on your bed, Be angry with it, conflict with it as much as possible till you fall asleep. Believe me, when you wake up, the thought has left you. It only catches you at the time, and if you succumb to it, it'll take over and pushes you all the way down to the pantry or to do all kind of other action which you're going to regret. Just let it be till it goes away. The other way, you hold your right hand, that's the Chofetz Chaim brings, take your right hand and you say, if you're able to say it in the Hebrew, it's great. If not, you say it in the English. Lev tahor, pure heart, brali Elohim, create for me, dear God, veruach nachon, and a very upright spirit, chadesh bekvi, renew in me. Lev tahor, and you say it 3 times. Lev tahor, pure heart, create God in me and recreate inside me the freshness of my spirit. You say it 3 times, moving your hand from left to right on your forehead, and that takes away very evil thought that we don't have the power to come over them. Once you do it for 2 weeks, I promise you, like addiction to anything else, to drugs, to sugar, to eating, it's going to calm down. You have to fight for about 2 weeks, and then it's going to be subdued, and then you're going to make an ownership over your new way. And I'm very proud of you, because this is your greatness as a human being, to go against the grain. And this is your tikkun. And your tikkun and my tikkun and other ones and her tikkun, everyone is different. Where you holding, what kind of thoughts. But for this, you came to this world. This is what you have to fight. And by the way, that proves you all about God, because what the heck these thoughts come from? Why do I have these thoughts and the person next to me, next to the same bowl of popcorn or whatever temptation it is, or chocolate, or whatever it is, right? Or unkosher food will say, I don't care. I don't care about it. Why do you have any temptation for it? The next level up is called the Ruach, the spirit. And the spirit is in charge of the emotions and the interaction between human beings, dialogues, interaction, emotional side. This is one of the major parts of us as human beings. And Professor Viktor Frankl, who was a traditional Jew, he writes in his book, and Kabbalah upholds it, that the center of my conscience, where I make my decisions, where I'm going to regret it later, where it's coming back to me and say, I feel guilt, shame, blame, is in my heart. That is that section which is called Ruach. And when we go to sleep, we say, Biadcha afkid ruchi, please God, depositing, so to say, in your hands now, I'm empowering and depositing in your hand my spirit, not my nefesh. The animalistic soul stays inside our body even when we go to sleep, and therefore most of our dreams are way out, language that we don't understand, and some of them are not true. Some of them are psychological, or just my own fears, on my own fantasies. Right? You want to be the president of the United States, or you feel that a lion will devour you in the middle of the night. That comes from the animalistic soul. That's why usually children crave to have an animal, or usually dream about animals. They don't dream about money because that's not in the world. When a person is already at a higher level, which discusses the whole day his spirit, they will dream about human interactions. They will dream about that career sought after. They will dream about that position, standing in front of people and lecturing to them. They will dream about somebody lying to them, gossiping to them, flattering them unnecessarily. It will all be about human interaction, the lack of them, or what we do have. I'm a victim. I'm always a victim. So when you look at the 10 Commandments, for example, not to lie, not to cheat, not to give false evidence. This is all a dress up. It's a cloth, right? It's a clothing up for what? For that part of our soul, which is a higher part, which is called the spirit or the ruach, which is actually the funnel or the bridge between my soul, which is right here, which we're going to discuss now, and my animalistic part. And we have to work through this. Many of the addictions, such as, and not only addictions, temptations, such as violence, or other addictions that people do using their hands, violence, using the legs or other organs, is because that part, that bridge between the mind, the intelligence, the brilliance, and that lower level is very small. Most men do not work, do not know, are not at the level of consciousness and awareness to know how to use that level of emotions, and therefore they fall to all that manly kind of addictions. Some ladies too. And the treatment and the therapy for it is to open your heart, either in therapy, and that is the reason why many men marry a woman, because a woman's emotional world, the woman's faith world, trust world, connecting to God, to Hashem, is much bigger, much more metukan, rectified than a man's. That's Kabbalah. And when one of the participants is asking, if the tree of knowledge, good and evil, was the cause of the evil inclination, right? Then indeed, or how did Adam and Eve get the temptation to eat the fruit? How? Well, that's a very good question. And the answer is as follows. And that is, the evil, that's the one who discusses it, is the best pupil, the greatest student of the Gaon of Vilna. His name was Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, his book Nefesh HaChaim. Nefesh HaChaim, the animalistic, here are the meant, the soul of life, the spirit of life. That's the name of the book in Hebrew. So he writes as follows. We are created again with two souls, as we started this dialogue, this session today. The pure one, the Yetzer HaTov, is God-given, and it doesn't change. We are born with it, we're going to die with it. The one that we are given now, that accompanies this flight called life, this journey, is the evil inclination. For this we are here, to fight with it and to grow through it. Because again, with no adversary, we cannot grow. So when Adam HaRishon, when he saw the tree of knowledge, and God told him not, for him to eat from it was like jumping into the fire. So how did he fall? Well, he was told by Hashem, by God, do not eat from it. When he spoke to his wife, who did not hear God's voice about this commandment, the only commandment was only given was one, very simple: don't do it, don't do it. So he was more stringent than God. He said, don't eat it, don't touch it. Then came the snake, which is the given element embodying, personifying the evil inclination. And he pushed Eve, that's Kabbalah, that's the Zohar, pushed Eve against the tree of knowledge, good and evil. He said, you see, don't die. She didn't know that touching it, she will never die, because that was in God's commandments. And Adam, by being too stringent, he was actually doing wrong. Don't be too stringent. Just go by the law. What did God say? Don't eat. So he pushed against the tree, said nothing happens. Now you can eat from it also, nothing will happen. And she saw it was going to make her wiser. It was incredible. It was luscious. It was beautiful. So she was tempted. Why was she tempted? And that's the actual question. Says Rav Dessler Michtam Eliyahu, he writes in his letter from Elijah, it's called, that he wrote to many of his students spread around Europe and Israel during the time of the Holocaust and a bit before and a bit later. He says, because he had a bit of arrogance inside him. He said, I'm actually just a servant, a slave of God. You know, I've got no free choice. I'm a human being, I'm not an angel. So what, am I a robot? God said, don't eat. Okay, don't eat, don't this, don't that. I'm just a robot, God have free choice. But I know that I do. So if I choose not, if I just don't eat, I'm a robot. I'm so petrified to see God is walking in the Garden of Eden. You know, he was a prophet. The only choice I have is whether to do it or not do it. So let me do it once, and then I will not internalize it, and I will reject all the thing that says, God will say, you are great, I'm so proud of you. It's like you're saying to your child, do not put your fingers into the electrical plug. And the child will say, well, that's the only choice my daddy gave me, my mommy. You know what, I will do it and nothing will happen. But of course, things will happen and the child will be electrified, and in the worst scenario, he will die. And that's what happened to Adam and Chava. Then Eve, not that God punished them, like you put your fingers in electric plug and you die, because that's natural laws. Eating the tree of knowledge, good and evil, he internalized that poison, that ability to be small-minded, very limited mind, which does not belong in the next world to live forever. No, it belongs in this world where our life is very limited. The eldest lady ever passed away last week. I think it was in Persia, I read, or in China. She was 138. Wow. But she should have lived for much longer. We can live much longer. And today, scientists, Dr. Gundry and other people in the States are working at that equation formula when people live much longer. And the Bible tells us when Mashiach will come, a child, a youth, will be 100 years of age. We are going to live much longer. We'll be able to live much longer. And that was the time I'm going to write. But before that, because he was of limited knowledge, because he limited himself to human knowledge and not being part and connected to godly knowledge, that's why he fell, and that's why it was his own doing, it was on boomerang to die as a human being. He cannot live forever because he's going to ruin the entire creation, and he did. He destroyed the animal world, he destroyed the plant world, as we discussed in previous, Yes. Yes, ma'am.
אז דבר, one by one, regarding what we spoke until now, regarding desires, לשון הרע, there is many halachot, and the problem that I can see, and you can respond to it after I finish, is that many times it's so extreme. Do not speak lashon hara, do not do this, do not eat milk, do not eat meat, and do this, and only badatz like this, and only badatz like this. And the challenge is that you need to know who you ask for, right? Who you ask from. I am not going to go to ask a radiologist or a nose, throat, and ear doctor about my stomach, or maybe a radiologist if he's doing an X-ray for me. But every person has his own specialty. You have to really, really be very knowledgeable about the halachot, because what happened is that many times people see the Jewish religion as a very strict, unaccommodating, difficult,
limiting religion.
Yes. Limited, too much discipline. And how can I do that? So the whole idea of the habits and the tradition is really to train you to navigate, to redirect, to recreate your yetzer, your desires into a creation. So if I am bored and the negative inclination start working in my head over time, I need to navigate that time and mindset into a productive, more efficient and creative time. I talk about being busy versus efficient. So boredom is a problem, because when we are bored, of course, the negative inclination is going to kick in. As much as I'm going to leave my house open and someone come in, or the door of the car, or whatever it is. This is why you have to be midat hazirut, and this is the Mesad Sharim, one of the beautiful books that I love so much. I call it the coaching book. Talks about the steps you need to do to be careful. You have to watch your soul, not from fear, from a great expectation and looking forward for your future. So lashon hara, obviously, in CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, we talk about how we experience the world, right? Emotionally or rationally. Is it with ourselves, with our surrounding, or with the world? And it's kol case is for himself. Sometimes we need to share it, not in order to speak lashon hara, but as Mia said, to heal our soul. And the intention is not to hurt the others rather than heal ourselves. It's like someone is struggling and challenged with belief or faith in God. He's verbalizing it to find solution and peace to his soul and to his existence. So dare I say, we can't have peace if we don't have the pieces together, right? So every she'ilta, there's a posek for it. I am not going to ask someone who's not knowledgeable, very, very good, Talmid Chacham in all halachot, about halacha, or pikuach nefesh, or delivering a baby on Saturday, or, stuff like that, right? So you need to know who to ask for, and there's always a way to work through in order for any individual to heal and to become a better version of himself, because God is good and he's looking to help you and to support you. So there's always a way in the halacha not to cut corners, rather to help you heal and find peace within. with starting with understanding that God is good. So that's regarding the lashon hara or any other kind of other desires. It's a mind game, which means you have to be aware, you have to be careful, because when you're careful, you're being aware. When you're aware, you can be efficient. When you're efficient, you can be focused. When you focus, you can be quick. So it's kind of like a chain train that one step
Leads to the other.
Right. Yes.
And this is living chain because one hold the other. So I'm going to just reflect on two major issues that you mentioned. One is boredom. So this is really a Mishnah. Mishnah means the soul of the things in Pirkei Avot, in ethics of our forefathers, which says as follows. It says boredom leads to inappropriate actions. And the reason because if I leave my house for a month, I went overseas for a month, please God, and I come back and I don't expect to find the house. It's going to be full of dust, but nobody came. It was a void. No, dust will collect. If I leave my garden outside, I didn't plant anything, I didn't throw inside any poison, it's going to be full of weeds, because any place that you leave unattained to grows weeds, attains dust. The same, so much more so applies to our mind, to our soul. If you leave it unattended because of boredom, all kind of nonsense, shtuyot, walk inside it. And King Solomon really said it out loud when he said, I walked by a lazy person's garden and I saw it's full of weeds, which took hold and ate up, consumed all the good flowers around it. It doesn't only grow weeds, but it destroys every good other thing. So boredom is the trigger for anything else. Use your time, fill up your disk every day. I don't say be involved every minute. Of course, we need to rest. I want to need some time to relax and laugh, of course. But all day, day and night, chilling, right, is not good. At any age, is not productive. Of course not. To the major question that you said, Shilin, that is follows. Most people really don't know the Jewish halakha, and what they say is from an outside visitor's perspective, a guest. But the more you know it, and I've been spending many, many years in Kollel about this, you know that the halakha is tailored. You have to be very great in this to understand it's tailor-suited to the size and to the shape and to the special case of every person. For example, the halakha says as follows, the Jewish law. If a rabbi in his town does not teach the following law that a woman on Shabbos, if she's pregnant and she needs to give birth, do not come and ask me anything. Just take your car with your husband and drive all the way to the hospital. If she comes, the husband says, no, let me wait in line, ask the rabbi, maybe he's sleeping, maybe he's not available. And in the meantime, something happened to that woman, to the baby. The rabbi himself is bloodshedding that woman because he forgot to teach her, do not come to ask. Your child got very badly bruised and cut. Do not come and ask. Take him to the doctor. Call 911. Your daughter is trying to suicide. Somebody is in a psychological, terrible pain. They are hysterical. Do not come to us. Take them to call 911. No Shabbat, because your line confessed in a rabbi that is too negligent to teach this kind of law. He has got blood on his hands. Now, the same applies to very simple halakha. For example, we all think I'm not going to teach halakha because it's shun Kabbalah, but for example, we all think, for example, somebody is coming to be Jewish, don't eat milk and meat together, keep 6 hours after meat to milk. But that's not true. That's not for everyone. A baby that was just born, there's no laws like this. When he becomes 1 year old, you only give him 1 hour, 2 years old, 2 hours. That's the halakha. People don't know it. Till he becomes 6 years old, you slowly educate them to 6 hours. But if a person is sick, dying bad, and the doctors tell him you have to eat cheeseburger, eat cheeseburger, go for it. Because the law is flexible, but just don't make up your own mind with it. And I will give you one interesting case. One of the great rabbis of our generation, his name was Rabbi Yitzhak Berlin. He's the Rosh Yeshiva of Reb Chaim Berlin in New York. And one of my rabbis came to him when he was studying there and asked him, can I leave the yeshiva and go to learning college, university? He said to him, absolutely yes. His friend came afterwards, his chavruta, and asked the same question, can I leave to university? He said, absolutely not. But your friend, you told him 2 minutes ago that he can. He said to him, yes, and to you, no. But it's the same law. No, it isn't, because you are a different person. He will not fall and not fool around in yours, but you will, because I know your nature. So you have to really know the person, know the circumstances. And another thing, each one I really thought about when Shiri was speaking, I was brainstorming with myself what examples to give you. About 150 years ago in Germany, before the Holocaust, was sitting a man on Shabbos in a hotel, even the counter, secular accountant, and writing on Shabbat whatever he needs to do. One of the greatest rabbi of that generation was there. He didn't know that was a great rabbi. And he obviously understood the rabbi that this person is not at the level of consciousness and awareness. What is the seriousness to the gravity of Shabbat? So he didn't shout at him, Shabbos, give out. No. He said to him, he got into conversation with him and asked him where he's holding. And then he told him a little about Shabbat. I said, look, I don't connect and I'm not holding where you are. You are a rabbi. I'm a simple person. Just let me be. So to him, that's fine. I will only ask you one thing. Do you smoke? He says, yes, I do. Smokes like a, chimney. I smoke all day. Said, I want you to make sure you come to an acknowledgement, level of awareness of knowing how many cigarettes you smoke a day. Said, I never thought of that. Okay. And then there's nothing to do with halakha. That's got to do with normal health. Any physician will tell you what's your health. Said, don't cut it out. Just I want you to know if you're holding 20 cigarettes a day, carry on for 1 week, 20 cigarettes. The same applies to your writing. I want you to make sure that you see how many words you write in Shabbat. So let's say 2,000. Okay, let me 2,000. I want you next Shabbat to try and limit your words to 1,900. Just make sure that if you can write in short or write less, write less. Make sure that if you smoke 20 cigarettes any day, including Shabbat, next week cut it down to 90. 90 is still a lot, just 19. And when that person became conscious, he had the das, he had the knowledge, that awareness of how much and how important it is, slowly but surely cut out all his smoking habits, and slowly but surely cut out all by himself, not by a rabbi telling him you must, black and white. No, you must. He told him that that's slowly but surely he stopped writing completely on Shabbat. He found a different way. He took a goy, somebody who's not Jewish, that can write. Now, this is very important what all of you ask, and that is, and also the one who wrote to me this chat. Before the sin of Adam Arishon, the first man, he had truth and falsehood very clear. Is it the true or it's false? True that God said don't eat, false, eat. After that sin, that became blurred. And from now, there's good and evil. That's why it's called the tree of knowledge, good and evil, not truth and false, not truth and lies. From now, I can say, well, that's not complete lie. There's some kind of truth to it. Things became in a rainbow, shades. And that's the problem of adapting into ourselves. That's knowledge of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Nothing is simple anymore. If I want to make life simple, I want to simplify my life, go back into the objective truth of the Bible that will tell you black and white, that will tell you left and right, that will tell you what's kosher, what's not, what's pure, what's not impure, what's truth and what's falsehood. But when you rely on your own mind, everything has got shades of good. A bit of evil, a bit of temptation, a bit of chocolate, and that bit comes, to many, many packets of chocolates or ice cream or sugar or whatever it is temptation you go for. It's not so bad. It can also be good. So why not? I can enjoy myself. I held myself the whole week. Just on Shabbat, I can just have the whole thing, the whole pantry for myself, for example. That is already concerning the good and evil, which are subjective, and that's how the evil inclination came in. Just one more point for today, that is the soul. The soul in Hebrew is called neshama. Neshama, what is the name of the soul? Neshama. What does it mean, the name of the soul? Nun, if we separate that word into its elements, it's called nun shma. It comes from a very, very highest source humanly possible to attain, which is called Nun. The 50th gate, we're going to discuss next week which Sphira it is coming from, right? Which is a very high Sphira, but not the highest, because the two other elements over and above that physical ability of our body to contain. But the soul is within our body, and according to Kabbalah, it sits within our pituitary gland, where a person puts on a tefillin over here, right into the fontanelle, as we call it, I think the same word applied in Latin and in English, right? All the way down here, inside that pituitary gland, behind our eyes, right, sits, right, what the Indians call the third eye, sits inside of the soul. It's eternal, and it watches the whole world from there. It's pure. Whenever we engage in any kind of gossip, lashon hara, or any other kind of transgression, which in Hebrew the word transgression comes from the word chet, which means I've missed my point, I've missed my tikun, that's all. You've gone astray, you're so far down, it's so going up and progressing towards your goal in this world, you're going down. It's a dislike. And therefore that soul goes away, it runs away, because it knows by definition of its creation what is right and what is wrong, what is falsehood and what is truth. The minute that the person sins, right, that soul leaves him completely. So what takes over, what hijacks this cockpit of this pilot? The animalistic soul. We say in Hebrew, when a person is completely full of anger and ego, hadam alalu rosh, meaning the blood, which means that carries, that's the conduit of the evil inclination, hijacked your soul. And if you do it many, many times, there is no place for that soul anymore. You see on a person evil. You see on that person, for example, if somebody eats a few times unkosher stuff, especially prey animals, such as lobsters or shrimps, you see if somebody is familiar or an expert in face reading, and I've been doing it for many, many years, I'm hinting to you, you can see in that person's eyes and face that cruelness, that coldness, that lack of emotion, because you've damaged, you've abused your own soul, which is not there anymore. There are consequences, but God, why did you leave? Why are you so cruel, God? No, you've been cruel to yourself. You punish yourself. The only one that you're doing good to is yourself, or bad, or damage. It will always your consequences, which you bring upon yourselves, or sometimes if you're very passive and very naive and too weak, other people will abuse you. I think one of the nice things that I read today, I'm going to share it with you if I quickly find it. I think it was Oscar Wilde, yes, that said as follows. This is very interesting. I was shockingly, pleasantly surprised. It says, Oscar Wilde says as follows: most people are other people. What does he mean? Listen to this. It's very short. Most people are other people. Their thoughts are somebody else's opinions. Their lives, a mimicry. Their passions, a quotation. I'm not me. I'm just a passive follower of other people, what they say, what they think. I don't have my own opinion. I didn't formulate my own thoughts, my own feelings. My mommy said, my daddy said, this one said, my teacher said. Why don't you search it for yourself? Why don't you have your own opinion? And that's what one of the major things Kabbalah wants to institute in us, to not because everyone said it's not, and say it's data, because it is no. Try and formulate your own opinion. Try and ask somebody that you respect. One of the major things in Torah is learn from somebody that you know that he's really pure in his heart, somebody that really will have the truth in their mouth, because otherwise they're going to sway your mind left and right, and you're going to grow with poisonous water. What are doing such a thing? This is the reason why we tend in many times to the Shulchan Aruch, and as Shili cleverly said, smartly said, there are rabbis for milk and meat. The other rabbis, which are the therapist of the soul. It's two different subjects. There are rabbis that do Kiddushin, that are in charge of Gittin and Kiddushin, how to make that marriage work and how to make a divorce work. And those rabbis are different from the rabbis just with the everyday kind of halachot Jewish laws. But there's special rabbis which are therapists of the souls, and that's a specialty that you should know who you go to ask. You can't ask them about milk and meat usually. You have to ask them about ethics. So let's take it till here. Open to your reflection for today. Please go ahead, either in chat or saying, right, whichever way you wish to communicate. This is your chance. L'chaim.
That was really interesting and enjoyable. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Any other
תמשיך,
reflection?
מקסים.
Yes, Shili, go ahead.
הכל טוב, תמשיך.
Okay. That's very good and great. And any chat that you want to ask anything? I don't see anything in the chat. So this is the three parts of the soul. To summarize, the general name is called neshama, neshome, which is our soul. But seriously, really, it's made up of three parts. To summarize, the animalistic part is residing in our liver. From this come our temptations, our ego, our anger. For example, jaundice is usually a result of lots of anger and resentment. That's why people have it. The physical manifestation of an illness will always be a symptom, a result of an emotional or spiritual or mental condition that we harbor inside us for a long time. The residing place, the location, the temple of our spirit is in our heart, the seat of consciousness, the seat of our own decision-making. Professor Viktor Frankl. It doesn't come from the mind, it comes from the heart, because there will always be a moral dilemma. The mind will always just calculate, but I will decide because it's a moral dilemma. Moral involves emotions. And the Zohar says, Rachamana libabai, Hashem wants your heart. He doesn't want your mind only, he wants your heart. How can the Torah command, you should love your fellow, you should love God? Can you command me on my feelings? Yes, I can. Because this is what God wants, but he wants you to choose that, not to be forced into it. Okay, I have to love you, I love you. No, he wants you to choose this because you recognize that's the source of life, that's the gift of life. I'm grateful for that. It's for my own good. I'm not doing God any favor. And the last but not least is the soul, which is seated in the pituitary gland behind your eyebrows, right? Between the eyebrows and where you put down, where you're feeling in the crown, what we call the crown chakra. That junction between them together, that is the place, the seat of the soul, which sees through our physical eyes, which is in Hindu is called the third eye, right? You see from there the entire world, which knows the difference between good and evil and truth and false. My recommendation for you for the following week is every time you have an action, a thought, an emotion, challenge yourself and say, well, before I do it, before I act, where is it coming from? If you recognize it's coming from the temptation, from the evil, from the voice which is pushing you, don't do it. Don't do it. Just hold on your horses. Don't do it. Even if you get angry with it, till it calms down. Go for a run. Put your hand from left to right. It says, Lev tahor brali Elohim, beruach nachon chadesh b'kirbi. And this is your assignment for the coming week. And that will go a long way. And if you are fighting, that's very good. God bless you all. And soon is coming Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.